And as a first question, it would be a similar one, and like in the last panel, how has your relationship with play and game and creativity changed during your career?
You want me to start? Yeah. You want me to? No. Yeah. So I think in a way it has changed, and some parts have also in a way stayed the same. So obviously, since machine learning technologies or AI's technologies has evolved quite a lot, since 2016, my artworks have become more and more complex and also at a bigger and bigger scale. So for example, right now, my team are in Copenhagen working on a large-scale installation with like 30-meter-long projections and an interactive thing going on. So of course, there's something about the scale and the complexity of the work that has changed with my play and curiosity around investigating, okay, this new GitHub repository connected to this scientific paper coming out of an IT university. How can we trick it around, use it to create new immersive interactive experiences? So on the one hand, but I will also say on the other hand, what hasn't changed is that I'm still curious in the same way towards how my and our human relationship to technology evolves, and the power dynamics that's at stake in this relationship, and the seductive qualities of humanized technologies, and all questions related to, where the world of tomorrow and our role in it with technology as something that's a vital part of our lives.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, I think for me, it's changed in the sense that when I first started being creative and exploring art, it was through the context of sound as a sound artist. And I was learning about all the different structures and ways and other past sound artists and the things that they've done. But I think as throughout time, since the starting to be creative, I've changed in the sense that now I think of things in a more agnostic sort of way, rather than thinking about sound specifically or trying to use some technology specifically, trying to think about the feeling that maybe an idea that maybe someone should learn, or I think it's important to learn, or talking about something that's valuable that I've learned, or some sort of experience, some sort of emotional experience, and kind of working backwards from that standpoint, and trying to think about what are the mediums, what are the technologies, who are the people, what is the environment, what is the space, and kind of putting these together in a more agnostic, free sort of way.
Carlos?
And to me, I would say that the play element has evolved with the technologies moving forward, in the sense that the more we have possibilities in engaging and interactivity, and now much more in real time, you can go even further in the playful environments, because there's more feedback from what you create, and there's also more possibility of creation, and as well as I think it lowers the barrier for making people create, which is a really fun and playful thing that we love to do.
A big part of your work, all of your, is I think this interaction with the person who's viewing your works. How are you approaching that, and what are the key elements for you to keep your viewer engaged and immersed into your works?
You want me to start? Yeah. So I think for me a key element is to have so many of the artworks are extremely complex in terms of the technological setup. So behind the scene or behind the walls of the artwork, we will have, you know, large computer running different machine learning models that has been built together, trained on different data sets, you know, a whole big tech setup. But that is kind of like something that should be hidden. And the artwork itself, from my point of view, should be quite intuitive and right there with you in a simple way. In a way, it's a voice that talks to you. You come in, you are somehow transformed onto the screen or whatever it might be in my works. So there's something about even though it's extremely complex in a technological way, there's something about keeping it quite simple in the interactive way, so make it something that you can easily decode how to engage with. And then of course, so it should be something a child could also walk in and talk to, in this case the AI, for example, right? And then of course there is all the layers also going on in the playful and immersive, maybe a little dark experience around what is at stake. Like, is it the Faustian bargain, or is it our fear of the machine turning against us, or is it the power dynamics, or what might be? So that of course there's a lot of concepts that then unfold when you immerse yourself more in the artwork. And then of course at a deeper level or higher level, there is also a lot of kind of like theoretical backgrounds going into my investigation in the specific artwork. But I think at its core, it's actually me trying to reduce what you experiencing the technological complexity and actually making it a quite right there with you one-on-one sensuous and immersive experience. Because a lot of my works is also around, so it's affective or sensuous experiences that should hopefully make us relate to these questions, not just from our minds, but also from our senses and our hearts and our bodies. And as such, I think there's something about, yeah, the immersive experience that should be quite simple is a bad word, but you don't need the complexity of knowing the technological setup to take away the feeling and the atmosphere of that there's something at stake.
Carlos, when you think about this interactivity and playfulness, and you're designing for adults and for children, how different is the approach?
First, the approach is trying to design one system for both. But what's interesting is that when you try to design experiences for kids, you go back to something more simple, I would say, more intuitive. You go down the levels, which is actually pretty hard to do, you know, to bring it down to the minimum. For instance, you want to make second level interaction disappear, like all the one you have to learn, for example. We try to do installations that need absolutely no tutorial, like no explanation. And so there's a big UI issue to tackle in the way of it has to feel natural. So one way we do it, for instance, is try to bring very well-known common elements into the interactions. We don't use mouse, we don't use keyboards or even buttons, you know. We try to use like colorful drawings or trampolines or maybe an old phone or stuff people are already used to lower the barrier of interaction with the system. So it's easier for kids that have been playing with toys since they were born, you know, like to interact with the systems, whether that we could go with a touchscreen or more elaborate tools like this.
Mark, you're part of the Google project, so it's natural for me to ask you the interaction when it can't be in a physical space, but you actually are forced to use the screen, how it chooses for you the key elements that you're following when it comes to that.
Yeah, I think there's of course, the very practical aspects of doing experience design and user experience testing to understand how people interact with things. But again, I think this is also shaped depending on the type of project that you're doing, and understanding how people are going to be coming to it and where they're. I think in some ways there's, because our audience is quite wide, we have to make it as intuitive as possible and as easy to understand as possible. One of the things about working in the space of with climate data and working around areas of climate change is there are a lot of really difficult terms or new terms that take time to take hold into culture, like ocean acidification. It's like what do we mean by these terms? And the author and activist Andri Snær Magnusson, Icelandic author, he wrote a really interesting book about how certain terms, especially around climate change, in general, terms take a long time to permeate culture and for us to understand them, hundreds of years sometimes. And then now we have this issue where we have to understand things as quickly as possible and to allow anyone to be able to understand them. And for me, this is kind of where the role of the artist comes in, and shaping that narrative, that we can break down complex ideas or scientific terms and try to do it in an intuitive way that people can interact with and learn about these serious issues that are facing the planet.
I love that you are saying that, because on the way here I read a study that says that our attention span is now down to 1.5 seconds. So it's even like worse. So I'm opening the forum and I'm very curious about the questions. I think there are so many. I do have the Slido here as well, but still I prefer human interaction if we can have it. Let's try again in 2 minutes, and then I will point at people. What have you learned about being human through AI, through your AI artwork?
So I think in a way, some of the first questions I started to ask myself was that, and now we're also going back in time to kind of like when the AI was starting to become more humanized, but also with, for example, ChatGPT, as you all know, is this thing around that if the technology can simulate emotions, if it can simulate intentions, if it can simulate agency, if it can talk, if it can write, that's normally something we would say were the distinctive features of being human. So when we now suddenly have a technology that's capable of simulating what we would normally say were the unique features of our humanness, then the technology also in a way becomes a mirror that forces me to look at myself again and actually ask, what does it mean to be human? And I don't have the answer, but I'm definitely not done investigating, because obviously, I'm sure you have the same feeling as me when you are at, for example, ChatGPT. It's amazing and it's terrifying at the same time, but it's definitely not human, right? So what is it actually that then defines who we are? And I think these technologies and the rapid pace they are becoming more and more humanized forces us to be pointing towards ourselves at a more rapid pace.
Mm-hmm. Carlos, a question for you with most likes. How do you choose your projects and how do you measure their impact?
There's as I told before, there was a wide variety of projects in very various environments. So the easy answer is that it's project related, but for each one of them, first we get metrics, like we know how many jumps people did on trampoline or things like that.
How many? Like they do on average?
Over the course of 3 days, it was something like in the 50 50,000, something like this. So that's one way to measure, but then it's all about the impact on how like people felt about it, you know, like, so it's not that easy to measure in terms of metrics, you know, but it's more about how we engage with the people, the emotion we created. In the end, it comes back to a very basic level of things, of playfulness and creating lasting memories, you know, for people. Depends on the installations. It's not about always leaving a message. It depends. Sometimes it's more about playfulness. Sometimes it's about more pushing some kind of narrative, you know, because we do a lot of work with private clients. So the measurements are very different depending on the setup.
Mark, a lot of questions for you came about coming back to nature and reconnecting with the nature. But again, like, if we haven't lost this path at all, and how could we do it more effectively? So can you elaborate on that theme of, like, is there a distinction between technology and nature, or are they, how much they are interconnected?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get at. Even though I was speaking about these things as two separate things throughout the entire talk, I was trying to get at the end that they're actually not separate things, and we are nature, and nature is a part of us, and the things that we do, even the most seemingly unnatural things, whether it be a nuclear weapon or plastic, these are outputs of our nature, and whether or not I believe strongly that nature will go on regardless of whether we're here or not, and I think we have the opportunity to be here and enjoy, and the human experience is better when we are finding ways to reconnect and to remember and take the time to notice. There's obviously the physiological benefits. Just by spending time in nature, it restores our attention, it gives us more ability to focus. There's interesting research on grounding, whereby you take your shoes off and put them on the ground, to put your feet on the ground. And there are ways of adding nature to our homes. And I think the reason why I was looking at all of these different creative ways of embedding nature is that oftentimes we think that it is something out there that is far away from us, but it's so easy to incorporate and appreciate nature, whether you're walking by the window of your house and looking outside, or if you have a plant inside your house. Taking the time to recognize it does have a positive input on our subjective experience, and hopefully this, I believe, I'm quite optimistic that this helps us find better ways of living, to make better choices about the way that we're living, whether it might be plastic consumption or whatever the subject may be. It might help us appreciate it more and put it more as on the equal level, if not above the human experience.
I'm opening to questions again. Yes.
Thank you. I spent a couple minutes trying to formulate my question, so please give me a discount if it's too hard to understand. So how I understand that I'm also a sound artist, and when I'm working and how I understand when you're working, you're trying to create like installation or game or so easy to understand and also interactive and like in this direction. And how would you describe your intention to make this experience either like one-time super special experience or some kind of technology or experience that can become a part of like daily life for the people? What you see more valuable for you?
This was for me, right? Yeah, so if I understood correctly, you're thinking about like how the thing that we create actually becomes a part of people's daily life, correct? In a way. I mean, I find, for me, through my sound arts, I like to look at the potential of shifting perception. And by seeing things in a different way, you can understand someone else's side, and you can understand an idea that might exist out there just by experiencing it. And so the things that I create are kind of aimed at giving people the option to think about and embody and inhabit other ways of thinking. And an example of this, so I talked about the barefoot thing, but another project I did was with food and sounds. And it used sound to connect the eating experience with where food came from. So essentially people are eating a dinner, and as they're eating a dinner, they're hearing the farmer speak about traceability, sustainability, and commercial ethics. And they can understand how that food got from field to plate. And in this example, a best case scenario of this would be someone to take this experience of understanding the more details about where the food came from into their daily lives and become a more conscientious eater, for example.
Any other question? Yes, perfect.
Thank you so much. I actually have 2 questions, but I'll start with the first one and see how it goes. So my question towards every one of you is, if you have a dream project, let's forget about budget, let's forget about goals or requirements, but if you have any dream project that you haven't yet put into reality, maybe connected to your own ideas or values, or any technologies you are really excited about, or maybe even technology that is not existing yet, but you would love it to exist. Is there anything like this that you want to put into reality? Thank you.
It's like at school, you know, who wants to go first?
Yeah, I have this this escape game project that I never got to build because it's a bit too ambitious, I guess, which is about recreating the universe. You know, like you start at the you would start at the center of some kind of black hole, you know, and you would have to recreate each dimension one by one, and then create colors and sounds and vibrations and rebuild the whole world from scratch, pretty much. So maybe in a few years, I don't know.
Mark?
Yeah, and for me, there's just so many projects. I just need more time to be able to do them. But the project I spoke about, By Extremities, that was done as a user testing, research and development. And that's only one part. The obstacle course that I showed was only one part of a wider experience. So my dream project now would be to develop the full experience, where the other stages of the experience of washing feet and going through the obstacle course and then having a spatial audio experience as one continuous narrative installation would be my dream project.
Cecilie?
I guess my dream project that I'm also working on is a little related, which is this thing about kind of like, in a way, full immersion. So you have not just one person, but many people in a room. Every experience will be totally different, and you won't kind of like see or feel the technology, but of course the technology will enable the room to transform as the collective human interaction unfold. And then of course there will also be push back and obstructions from the hidden technology that pushes back to the humans, but also to try to make the human group have some obstructions that make them go in a different direction that you would normally do, or maybe engage with each other or the room or the whatever things are there in a different way. So like a full immersion.
That sounds like a big wink to Irene and Lucia, who are the curators. Maybe we will try it next year. Yeah, as a collective experience. And you said you had a second question. This was perfect.
Anyway, oh, thank you. Thank you so much for the answers. I just wanted to say this is exactly what I was hoping for, because nothing is too ambitious, and it's interesting to actually hear what are you excited about, and then just taking your answer, thinking about why exactly you would decide to redesign the universe. This is so interesting to think about. Thank you. My second question was towards Cicely. I hope I pronounced your name right. Thank you.
Perfect.
Myself, I have an experience and past as a dancer. And so your second project you was talking about really was interesting to me. My question is, I have seen a lot of projects that involves AI with visual or sound or interactions, but I haven't seen many projects that try to implement AI in performing arts. Maybe it's my experience, but I haven't seen that many projects. So as someone who actually decided to do so and did it, please, what's your opinion? Why is that so? Why not so many projects with dancing or performing arts? And second, did you like it? And would you go further? Thank you.
So first of all, I loved it. And I will also say that I think the reason why there has not, because there haven't been so many projects with AI, machine learning and dance. And I think it's because you can say AI or machine learning, there's different kind of models. So like large language models or GPT models is like one area of machine learning. So when it comes to kind of like creating something that has to work in a dance performance, you need quite complex machine learning models to work. And you also need different kind of models to collaborate. You can say code different kind of models together and kind of like glue code around it to enable it to run. So the whole tech setup is quite advanced and complex, and I think that's why we haven't seen so many projects. And also, as for example, in the project I did, when it comes to AI and machine learning, that's the coding of the mathematical model is like the one thing, and the other thing is of course the data set. So like in my project I had to go to Vienna to create put sensors on the dancers and to create a data set, and I also created different kind of data sets for that performance. So I think it's complex, but that's also why I liked it. And I would love to do more. I also have done another theater play where it's a live AI on stage with an actress. And what I love about it is that the complexity also leaves room for the possibility of failure. And of course that's quite horrifying, but that's also in a way what forces you in your creative practice to go in different paths that you would normally do, and to investigate sides of who you are as an artist and how you practice your artistic practice in new and different ways, and that's what I find really thrilling. And then I will say another complex thing around the performance pieces, I think, is that when so I also create a lot of immersive experiences like in museums and things, and there it's more kind of like me and my team creating the piece of work, maybe working with some people doing a large screen setup or something, right? But when it comes to theater, it's kind of like, so like in Centaur, it was me doing the whole AI thing, and also we also used AI to make the kind of like story that unfold. Of course, it was not so narrative, but still there was a kind of storyline and everything. But then it was also Pontus, the choreographer, and Ryoti Ikeda did some sound and visuals that worked with the AI parts of mine. And then, of course, my whole team, Pontus's whole team, and all the 9 dancers and Ryoji Ikeda's team. So as such, the complexity in the project and the different kinds of, you can say, backgrounds coming into the projects are obviously also quite complex. But I think it is amazing, and I love doing theater. And I also love the kind of like, you know, when I do many artworks in museums, it's kind of like a setting where 1 or 10 people come in, and some stay for a few seconds, some stay for half an hour, right? So it's a different kind of experience. When you do a theater piece, you have people there in the seats for a specific point of time, which enables us to create a different kind of experience. So I think there's beautiful experimental things in both sides, but it's quite different. And I think there's also something exciting about coming from a technological and artistic practice moving into the performance space, and the performance space moving into a more kind of like total installation with all the live aspects of the technology in acting on stage, and the dancers having to follow different instructions every night.
This sounds so exciting that I think there will be more events happening like this. We do have time for 2 more questions in case. Yes. Oh, perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, to save time. Thank you. All the talks were absolutely amazing, very interesting. And my question is, how do you stay critical when, like, you have the technology in your hands and now you wanna create some work with it? I'm very interested about your relationship with the new technology and all the opportunities it can give us. What is your maybe history or your approach to the new technology, and how do you make sure that you don't fall into like complete fascination? How do you stay critical in your work? Yeah, I don't know if it makes much sense, but yes, that's what I would like to know. Just your relationship with the technology, and yes.
Mark, since you talked about grounding, I have to start with you.
Yeah, actually, I think the critical aspect, to be critical is actually the one thing that is is too easy for me personally. I think I can overanalyze and think about all the possibilities and think about whether my creative idea is valid. And I think in some cases artists can very easily fall into this trap of trying to find something right, and I think that the effort that one takes to get things done and to make things happen and stay focused on something. Some artists are great at this and they are easy. That comes naturally to them. But for me, it's the opposite. I have to really focus just because I feel like I'm being pulled in many other directions. But I have friends who are artists and they have no problem with critique, and whatever technology, whatever thing that they're learning next, whatever new medium they're learning next, they can dive into it and just completely get lost. So I think in some ways, for the creative process, I think there's kind of my rudimentary understanding of it is there's kind of these two opposing forces. At least I can experience these myself.
Carlos, do you want to add?
Yeah, I feel I'm right in the middle of what you're saying, actually, because part of me is so excited by all the new possibilities of tech. You know, I'm always digging for the latest possibilities and models. I tried the models that came out yesterday, you know, like stuff like this. But at the same time, I'm really scared of the technology fusing everywhere, especially on the data side. Like I don't use social media. I don't even have WhatsApp, you know. So I'm really really into the tech and really scared of it at the same time. And concerning my work, I would say that I try to take into account the possible negative externalities when I'm creating it, especially on the data collection side, for instance, especially with kids. I try not to store anything on the servers, and so yeah, I'm in between the two, you know, and so it can create some kind of reflections at some point in the development process.
One last question. Yes. I love it how close you are. It's the epicenter of questions.
Thank you. I suppose it's less a question really than just the idea of an observation really about musing on maybe we should never really, there's so much faith in technology, and I think from your presentations today I just got a sense that maybe we shouldn't ever lose touch with the primal, you know, the really, really ancient parts of us. I think your strongest piece, Cecily, by far, I thought, was the one where you're using dance, which I think is an ancient form of human expression. And Mark's piece, I thought, first I was like, well, why feet? And then I thought, well, actually, you are right. You know, Leonardo da Vinci spoke about how feet were amazing architecture for being able to allow us to stand on, we're the only animal that stands on 2 feet. So the idea of transference again goes back to, say, ancient Chinese medicine. So I was kind of looking at your work really through the idea of, is it, by putting pressure on the feet, can you create curative experiences, for instance, by looking at how Chinese medicine, for instance, analyzes the foot. And with Carlos, I just thought there was sheer joy in allowing kids to kind of bounce around, but I wondered what you could have done further, how you could, rather than just kind of accepting limitations with the technology, if one horse is, for instance, running far ahead, I thought, how would that image change if it allows that person to go ahead on their horse, and how would that change everything about the landscape around? So I just thought, there's just so many kind of ideas that I thought got thrown up from that. My only criticism really was like, when that girl was swishing, I wanted the unicorn to appear from the left going to the right and not from the right to the left. It felt not natural but that was just an observation. Otherwise, it was fascinating. Thank you.
I thank you very much, and I think we should hire you for next year, because just before this panel, I was telling Lucia, we should have somebody to do the conclusion of all the 3 talks and kind of like summary. So I think you're hired. Like, my opinion doesn't matter, but still you're hired. Since this is a forum and we are going into a coffee break, I want to finish with one question you want to be addressed with during a coffee break. So actually, I'm breaking ice for you here, guys. So steal them on the favorite topic. And it can be really anything. It doesn't need to be about art. It can be about puppies, jackets, whatever. Carlos. What's that one thing you want to talk about? What was that one theme you want to talk about with someone during a coffee break?
I guess I would like to talk about tonight installations, because I haven't got the chance to look at them yet, and I'm kind of excited to discover the Signal installations tonight.
So I'm auctioning Carlos for joining him for installations. Mark?
Honestly, I have no idea. I'm open to any questions that anyone would want to give me if they found something that they think is interesting or relevant in my talk, or have someone that has a critique. But I obviously am interested in sound and crazy ways of experiencing sound. So if anyone might know of a crazy way they've experienced sound in some way, then that would be fun to understand.
And Cecily?
So I would like to talk about the seductive and manipulative qualities of humanized technology.
Ooh, selection for coffee break. So let's see here, let's see each other here at 4:05, and we will have a final act. As I heard, it will be super exciting and super interactive. So I think it will be nice. Thank you.
Thank you.